Hey, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. And I just want to take a second here to say to the CIA and the US government and our mainstream media, you fucking idiots. You lost your coup. Aw. Let's all take a moment of silence and feel bad for all of them for losing their coup. They thought they had it. It was slippery. It was a slippery coup. They couldn't hold on to it. So to give a little background, and by the way, this obviously things could change. This is the election that happened yesterday. The more cooing could be done, but for now, it's looking very much like the Bolivia has undone their far-right, U.S.-backed, fascist, violent coup that happened a year ago. But to give you a little more details, all right, so the Bolivian election was yesterday. Even the media, the mainstream media in Bolivia that has normally been basically supportive of this coup government that started a year ago, even they have admitted that the next president is from the MAS party, which is Evo Morales' party. Actually, I'll give more background in a second. Let me. I want to show you some of the tweets from this. These are journalists who are there in Bolivia. Two of them are members of the Gray Zone. You hear me talk about the Gray Zone outlet a lot. They do great work. And the first one, this is from Max Blumenthal, who is down there in Bolivia. He shows the sounds of celebration ringing out across working class neighborhoods of La Paz as Luis Arce of MAS is announced. That's the Movement Towards Socialism Party, is announced as the next president, winning huge in the first round. If you get above the 50% in the first round, then you do not have to have a runoff. And as Max says, this is a dramatic repudiation of Áñez Murillo and its would-be neoliberal successor, Carlos Mesa. Áñez Murillo she was the interim, and I'm not going to play the video because you can't really hear much. It's basically people firing guns in the distance, but still cool to see the Bolivian people celebrating. Áñez Murillo is the unelected interim president who claimed at the beginning that she was only going to be interim president for a few months. And then they kept putting off the election because they knew they were going to lose. They could see the polling. And so they kept putting it off. And they finally had to have it. And despite all of their efforts, 2 days ago, Saturday, before the election, they filled the streets with the military to try and scare people. We talked about that last night on the live stream. And anyway, despite all of this, basically, they just couldn't stop the flood of people that voted for MAS and, Evo Morales' party. Let's do another. This is another tweet. This is from Ben Norton, also with the Gray Zone, also in Bolivia. Even mainstream media outlets here in Bolivia that have obediently supported the coup regime are admitting that the Movement Towards Socialism, MAS party, won the election in a landslide. And then he goes on to say the Associated Press just vomits out imperialist propaganda. By the way, here is his earlier tweet showing that. Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let me get it right here. Okay, here's Ben Norton's tweet. But here's a different tweet that I haven't yet read. Even mainstream Bolivian media is admitting that MAS has won. And here's a image of the media showing that Arce won 52.4% of the vote. Mesa, who was the right-wing coup successor, won 31.5%. Camacho, who I believe is also a far right-wing violent extremist, only got 14%. Anyway, what he's talking about with Associated Press is our mainstream media has to find a way to basically act like this isn't legit, act like there's problems with it. Associated Press tweeted out, Bolivians waited nervously for the results of Sunday's high-stakes presidential election, even as Evo Morales preempted authorities' slow vote count and declared his hand-picked candidate the victor. So the Associated Press trying to act like there's some sort of, not, illegitimacy to this, but even like Ben is saying, the right-wing media in Bolivia has admitted the truth. And let me show you one more, but Associated Press is just garbage. Let me show you one more tweet here. This is from Ali Vargas, who is a great journalist in Bolivia. He is Bolivian, and Ben Norton and Max are Americans who went down there to observe the elections. If you want to follow a journalist in Bolivia, this is a good one to follow. Ali Vargas says, on a personal level, I can't believe this is finally happening, but it's what we've always known. Despite the massacres, despite the persecution, despite the U.S. intervention, the MAS is back and even more powerful. They can't put a lid on the majority of the people. Truly incredible to hear that from, a Bolivian journalist who has done so much work down there to continue the pressure, continue to reveal what's happening down in Bolivia. So just to back up for a second, for those of you kind of new to this story, a year ago, over a year ago, I think, a U.S.-backed far-right-wing coup basically took place in Bolivia. They had an election. Evo Morales was running for another term. By the way, Evo Morales, he had been president for 14 years. He had cut extreme poverty significantly, cut poverty significantly, really helped the people. He was nationalizing, and this will become important in a second, nationalizing the lithium mines, which Bolivia is one of the largest holders of lithium in the world as a natural resource. And so he was going to nationalize it, which means give the money of those mines, of those lithium resources to the people rather than to a tiny number of oligarchy that enrich themselves with the resources of the country. We're familiar with a little bit of that here in America, right? The oligarchy gets the spoils. They can dig into your land, find oil, steal all the oil, and they get all the money. You don't get any of the money when they dig down under and destroy the resources, destroy the planet. They get rich. You get nothing. It's so similar in Bolivia, but Evo Morales was changing that. So if even though he won the election, he won it by a smaller margin than the yesterday's election. And so they basically had ready a standard coup operating procedure with help from the United States to declare the elections not legitimate, say that there was tampering, say Evo Morales didn't actually win, and then and once you get the certain percentage of the military or the military higher brass to switch, you take the military into the state house and say, we are the victors because Evo Morales was corrupt. And they did all of this, and the U.S. helped because U.S. media is actually very influential around the world. And so even though this is, New York Times and things like that, it's not like Bolivians aren't aware of what's being said in the New York Times, and a certain percentage, especially of like military and police and things like that, higher officials are going to believe this horse shit, and the countries around them, that provides a lot of pressure as well. And so I remember the headline the following day after they basically made Evo Morales flee for his life because they said, we'll kill you if you don't get out of here. Also, there were other his party MAS mayors that were being dragged out of their homes and beaten and humiliated in the streets, having their hair shaved off in front of the town square and shit like that. It was just a classic far right-wing U.S.-backed coup. And I remember the headline because I saved the newspaper I was using it on stage to show to people. The New York Times, the front page after Evo Morales was violently kicked out of his country, despite the fact that this coup regime had not won the election. Even if they wanted to say that a few points were stolen, they still hadn't won the election. Evo Morales had still gotten more votes, even if they wanted to think there was going to be wanted to think there should be a runoff. He still got more votes. But the right-wing coup goes into play, and the New York Times following day headline: "The end of tyranny." Quote: "The end of tyranny. Evo Morales leaves the country." Totally fucking incredible that they would, put forward. I mean, doesn't shock anybody, right? New York Times, pile of shit. That's their job. That's what we do, right? We are a pile of shit. We do U.S. imperial coups around the world. That's our job. We try and make them seem legit. And New York Times was doing that. I'm sure Washington Post did it too. CNN, all of them. Right now, by the way, you turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I haven't seen a mention of this. And I imagine if there is, they probably, lie just a little bit, say, the election seemed not quite legit or some garbage like that. But I think right now, as far as I've been able to tell, I think right now they're just not covering it because they don't want to mention that the U.S.-backed coup has failed, has been flipped. And by the way, this is the third, at least, that I can count U.S.-backed coup failing in the past roughly a year, around about that amount. You got Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Bolivia have all fought back against U.S.-backed coups to destroy their countries. Because you got to remember that not only does the U.S. want someone else in power, they want an oligarch in power, they want a puppet government in power to do our bidding, to give us resources like the lithium, like Venezuela's oil. Not only do we want that, but we're the U.S. government and our, CIA and everything are fine with just, the coup didn't quite work, but at least the country's collapsing. At least we created a failed state. Like, to them, that's also a success. I mean, it's so fucking cynical and disgusting. Anyway, so the U.S. media, as far as I can tell, is not even covering this. This, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, is not to say there aren't some difficult steps going forward. Just because MAS won the election does not mean it will necessarily be an easy transition. Hopefully the military respects the election results and, there's a peaceful transition of power. I very much hope that's what happens going forward. It seems to be headed in that way. But, there could be a lot of things that still get in the way. So people have to keep the pressure on. I mean, that's part of the reason that the socialist movement, the MAS, were able to achieve this election result at all, was because of the pressure that was kept on by so many people outside Bolivia, people inside Bolivia, the indigenous in that country. Something I didn't mention is Evo Morales is the first indigenous president of Bolivia. I think the first indigenous president in a long time, at least in South and Central America. But the indigenous are the majority of the population, and so this is, and similar with Venezuela. This is there's a racial aspect to this. This is the indigenous people taking their country back from a lighter-skinned oligarchy. These are shades, as is any skin color. But, Greg Palast did some interesting reporting on how if you look at the coup plotters, with the exception of Juan Guaido, he was picked because his skin color is slightly more indigenous looking. That's part of the reason that they picked him as the coup leader in Venezuela. But for most of the people, if you look at trying to perpetrate this coup in Venezuela, even though they are Venezuelans, they are largely lighter-skinned Venezuelans because they are part of the former oligarchy in Venezuela, the whitish, not white, but whitish, leaders of that country. And if you look at Maduro and his government and the people in power, it's largely, slightly darker skin, more indigenous. Now, obviously, I'd like to live in a world where we no longer talk about skin color, but we unfortunately live in a world where it does matter in the sense like this is the indigenous people taking back their country against a whiter oligarchy. And also something else that has to be mentioned is that this coup that was created in Bolivia with U.S. support. There's a now famous tweet that has since been deleted by Elon Musk, because, as I mentioned, Bolivia has one of the largest lithium resources in the world. Many people believe that part of the main reason for this Bolivian coup that the U.S. helped create was to give the U.S. the lithium resources, sell the lithium resources to the U.S. and other Western countries. And the lithium is becoming more and more important. Lithium batteries are more important. So lithium resources are just, they're becoming like a new oil in a lot of ways. And so when people realized this after the coup happened, after the violent coup happened, somebody brought this up to Elon Musk, how much he was going to benefit from this lithium being sold to the U.S. rather than being sold fairly around the world, and the proceeds going to the money going to the actual people in Bolivia. Instead, you're given, pennies on the dollar sales by some puppet government the U.S. has put in there. And Elon Musk tweeted in response, "We'll coup whoever we want to coup. Deal with it." Now, whether he thought that was funny or whether he was literally admitting that he somehow helped pressure people to create this coup or somehow knew he was benefiting from it, it's tough to say. But either way, even if he did just think it was hilarious to tweet that, it's still revolting, disgusting. And it shows he has no care for what happens in these countries, especially when his companies benefit from them. But that's the truth of it, right? That he's saying something that's true, and I think, he thought it'd be funny to speak the truth, and a lot of people did not find it funny. Instead, they found it to be fucking revolting that the U.S. destroys countries in order to steal resources. So this is a huge moment in Bolivia's history. By the way, something else interesting to notice that in this election is pivotal in these results were the exit polls, because the exit polls came out before the official results and made it so that the official results could only be somewhat doctored. Like, you can't, if there's exit polls showing MAS won by 15 or more percentage points, and then you show official results that show MAS losing by 5 points, the shift, you'd have riots in the streets. It'd be insane. And the officials kind of know this. They can't go that different from the exit polls. In the U.S., our ruling elite have realized that if they're going to fuck up an election, primary or general, they need to basically get rid of the exit polls, because the exit polls have been showing a great amount of tampering, a great amount of difference between what people are saying when they walk out of those booths and what actually is on the voting machines that are counting our votes. There's a lot of bunny ears going on here. And so we've basically obliterated our exit polls. Exit polls, even for the last election, were only done by one company in America, Edison Research. So everyone's getting all of their information from one company that admits that they make the exit polls fit with the machine results. And so the only way last time around to get official exit polls, to get new exit polls or exit polls that weren't tainted to make them fit the machines, was to get them in the split second when they're showed by mainstream media before Edison Research has time to adjust them. And so that was how we found out that those exit polls were off from the official results in the primaries, was by doing that. But this time around, they've even gutted some of that. Edison Research is still around doing some little exit polling, but Fox News stopped, because Edison Research funded by a lot of the press corps, Fox News, AP. Fox News and AP both said they're going to stop helping to fund Edison Research and instead create their own exit polls. But as you know, Fox News is a pile of garbage. You're going to trust their exit polls. And AP, as we just saw in that tweet with Ben Norton, they're known for helping create coups around the world. So why not create one in America? You're not going to trust AP exit polls either. So you get one company that's barely hanging on that admits that they alter their exit polls. So America has a far less legitimate election system than a lot of countries, because we act like the exit polls can't work. We just don't know what's going on. So now they've started only reporting on the mainstream media partial results. they'll say like, oh, look at this. The exit polls show this many people who voted cared about health care. And they'll do that kind of shit because you can't analyze those numbers to do anything useful in the overall election. But they won't say the exit polls showed this many people voted for Biden or Trump. I don't think they will. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. But in this last midterm election, they avoided doing that because they don't want people knowing that the exit polls don't fit with the machine results. So these exit polls in Bolivia proved fairly pivotal for people to know going into the official results that the exit polls already showed MAS, Evo Morales' party, although he was not allowed to run because the Coup government thought they had a better shot of winning if they stopped Evo Morales from running. So like I said, people have to pay attention to this, keep going, keep talking about this because it'll make it harder for some sort of, faulty transfer of power or non-existent transfer of power to happen. I just like to conclude by saying once again to the CIA, to the U.S. government, to the State Department, to Mike Pompeo, to Donald Trump, you fuck faces, and Joe Biden. Joe Biden, of course, supports all our coups. I mean, he tweeted a week ago that we need to care about human rights in Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. Why do you think he picked those three countries? He picked those three countries because they're not bowing down to American imperialism. That's why he picked those three countries. So Biden's part and parcel with this horse shit as well. Anyway, congrats to Bolivia and Nicaragua and Venezuela for fighting off the American coup machine trying to destroy their countries. Please share this. If you like these videos, please go to leecamp.com, sign up for the free email list. You can also sign up in America by texting the word redacted to 33777. That's 33777. Type the word redacted, hit send, and that'll sign you up to the free email list. I do these videos almost every single weekday, except sometimes. And but you're not going to see them often on your feed. Those of you watching right now, because you saw it on a feed, you're the lucky ones. You're a tiny percentage of the followers. So the way to get my videos is to actually go to leecamp.com and look them up, hopefully every day if you'd like. And my podcast is called Common Censored. My other podcast is Government Secrets. They're all free. Check them out. Keep fighting.